Secretary of State Antony Blinken will return to Brussels this week. US officials say on the agenda are discussions on Iran, Afghanistan and Russian activities directed at Ukraine.
First, let me say we are concerned, as I've said in the past, but we've been, of course, watching it over the course of the weekend about the increasing aggression of Russian forces on the border. Secretary Blinken and Secretary Austin are in Brussels this week, meeting with their NATO partners, and we will, of course, I'm sure this will be a topic of discussion. We also remain in touch with Ukrainian officials at a range of levels, but I'm not going to get ahead of their discussions that they're having on the ground.
Blinken will join U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in Brussels. The trip by the two U.S. officials coincides with the increasing tensions over Russian activities near Ukraine's eastern border, where Washington says Russia has amassed more troops than at any time since 2014 when it annexed Crimea. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says that it was Washington and not Moscow which had to answer questions about its activities near the Ukrainian-Russian border.
Ответственным странам, с которыми мы общаемся, Турция одна из них, настоятельно рекомендуем проанализировать ситуацию, проанализировать вечные воинствующие заявления киевского режима и предостерегаем их от того, чтобы они подпитывали вот эти вот милитаристские настроения. Касается военной активности Соединенных Штатов, включая поход их кораблей в Черное море, это происходит регулярно. Сейчас это делается особенно напористо, сопровождается агрессивной риторикой, задаются вопросы, а что делает Российская Федерация на границе с Украиной? Ответ очень простой: мы там живем, это наша страна. А вот что делают Соединенные Штаты в виде своих кораблей, военнослужащих, которые постоянно организуют какие-то мероприятия по линии НАТО на Украине.
This statement comes after Washington accused Russia of a provocative buildup of troops and after Turkey, a NATO ally, said that Washington, which has provided arms to Ukraine, will send 2 warships to the Black Sea this week. While the Pentagon declined to discuss Turkey's comments but said military routinely sends ships to the region. Joining us on this broadcast is WION correspondent Lucy, who's joining us live from Brussels amidst reports that the talks will primarily focus, Lucy, on the tensions at the Russia-Ukraine border. And give us more details about when Secretary Blinken is expected to reach Brussels, and do we know what bilaterals are lined up as well?
Well, we know that he arrived late last night. There was a tweet at 3 a.m. local time in Brussels from Secretary of State Antony Blinken, who said that it was a pleasure to be back in Brussels. A picture of him coming down off the aeroplane. We know that, as you say, there he's due to meet in person with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, as well as with Ukrainian's foreign minister, who's also in Brussels today for crunch talks. But Jens Stoltenberg and Antony Blinken spoke by phone yesterday and issued a joint statement condemning Russia's continued aggression in the region and the dangerous build-up of troops at the Ukrainian border. We heard from a member of Blinken's team that this was about cooperation and coordination on this, that it was about diplomacy behind the scenes to send a strong message to Russia that this sort of aggression will not be tolerated. So there will be a series of talks today from Secretary of State Antony Blinken with his European allies as well as with NATO chiefs to decide on the next steps.
Lucy, earlier the United States administration said that Russia has amassed more troops at the Ukrainian border since 2014, and Russia says that NATO shouldn't be concerned because it is Russian territory and they can put their troops wherever they see fit. Moscow, in fact, is pointing fingers at Washington, accusing Washington of amassing their troops and sending warships into the region. So what is the big NATO concern about the Russian troop buildup near Ukraine?
Yeah, you're right about those warships. These are being sent into the territory tomorrow, the 14th and 15th of April, as a show of strength. These are US warships, and that was confirmed by Turkey. I mean, as you outlined there is a real fear that this is the biggest build-up of troops since 2014 during the annexation of Crimea. This is in the eastern Donbass region, and certainly Vladimir Putin is being accused of a dangerous provocation, dangerous provocative actions in the Ukrainian region, and that is criticism from Turkey and the United States as well. So Turkey confirming that there will be US warships sent into the region from tomorrow for a 2-day period. But clearly, you know, NATO and other allies don't want to prevent there being another destabilization in the region, and are calling for a de-escalation, really, and that is what this visit is about. It's not about provocation in any way, it's about de-escalating tensions, trying to return to diplomacy and sending a strong message to Russia that this build-up of troops won't be tolerated.
Final question. You know, UK and US have asked Russia to de-escalate the situation, but what are you hearing from within the European Union? How concerned are they regarding the situation on the Russia-Ukraine border? We know that Secretary Blinken is reaching Brussels, so they all agree that the situation is serious, but how hopeful are they that the situation can be resolved?
Well, of course, they're dealing with Russia, and we know that EU's attempts recently to sort of ease tensions with Russia have been, largely speaking, fairly disastrous. We had the EU's chief diplomat, Josep Borrell, on a trip to Moscow to meet with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov a couple of months ago, ending with Josep Borrell being largely humiliated by his Russian counterpart and coming back with real questions to answer from EU leaders here, as well as the European Parliament, who felt that he had been, as I say, humiliated on that trip to Russia, and that an attempt to be diplomatic had largely failed. But certainly with this kind of united front with the US, you'll know that Antony Blinken, this is the second trip that he's made in a month period. He was here in Brussels in March. So having a more coordinated EU-US transatlantic alliance might allow for these diplomatic efforts to have more success. And certainly there is relief here in the EU that there is a chance to cooperate with US allies, given what happened to US-EU relations under those 4 years under President Trump. So, as I say, that call between NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg and Antony Blinken yesterday, and that joint statement condemning the ongoing aggression and calling the build-up at the Ukrainian border dangerous, does send a strong united signal, and certainly there will be stronger language after the two chiefs meet today in Brussels, and we are expecting a statement after that meeting. And as I say, Antony Blinken, the US Secretary of State, sitting down with Ukrainian Foreign Minister as well here in Brussels, which again, there will be hopes that that sends a strong message to Russia, as well as, of course, those US warships that will be sailed out from tomorrow for a 2-day period.
Liu Hugh, thank you so much for joining us from Brussels with the latest on this big global story.